Our story begins with the introduction of dungeons that started to appear worldwide around 20 years ago. To compensate for the sudden changes, the world also starts to change as people started to gain skill. Roughly only a % of mankind has obtained the skill. Due to the appearance of powerful people, in no time an organization was formed that manages adventurers and dungeons, which came to know as Adventurers Guild. Now on our current timeline, in Tokyo City at the Adventurers Guild, a black-haired guy in his teens seems to be taking some kind of test by placing his hand on the crystal ball. As skills are necessary for adventures, we are then shown the status of the black-haired guy. His name is Seiki Iori, and he seems to be skillless and with average human stats. Normally, people do not become adventurer without the skills. However, just to make sure, the receptionist asks Iori again if he is sure to join the adventurers. Iori tells her to register him, while thinking that he seems to be one of the crazy ones. Now, as he registered and was on standby, he overhears that someone else is also registering without having any skill. This piques his interest, and when he looks, there is an orange-haired girl with a bright personality registering at the counter. Looking at this, he thinks that there are other people beside him who are crazy as him. As he was thinking, a man grabs both of them and asks if they, two incompetents, want to become adventurers. So he offers to show them some ropes around it. At this, the receptionist asks Fukumoto, who came to the newly registered adventurers, to take care of them. In this world, the ranking of adventurers are from F rank to S rank, and the middle ranks, or the C rank range, has a lot of experienced adventurers because of their saturation. Fukumoto tells her to be at ease, as he is a C rank adventurer after all. Now on the way, the orange-haired girl, while walking casually, asks Seiki why he want to be an adventurer, to which he just replies with a generic answer that they all make a lot of money, so why not chase the dreams despite no skill. When a monster in the dungeon is defeated, they drop magical items and stones which are quite valuable. Even the lowest grade magic stone will go for 10,000 yen per piece. He then looks down with quite a sad face and thinks that he has a reason to earn money no matter what it takes. Then we are shown a glimpse of his life before today as he daily works hard with part-time and other manual labor work and returns home where her sister is always there for her. Ever since his parents disappeared, he has been providing her sister's daily expenses and tuitions. They were poor, but they were quite happy until one day. When he returned from his daily work, he tries to look for his sister, whom he found collapsed on the floor. When she was taken to the hospital, the doctors tell him that his sister has gotten a skill which is eating her own body. It's known as incompatible skill syndrome. It is quite rare, and she is the first ever case in Japan. The doctor adds the only treatment that has ever been created is in the US. At the Seiki gets worried as the treatment fees must be insanely high. The doctor tells him at the minimum it will take 500 million yen. Now back to the current time, where the orange-haired girl is talking about how adventurers chase their dreams and how one end up longing for stuff. Seiki just closed the topic with a mild response. While talking, they reach the gate point where the adventurers are already waiting for the both of them. Looking at them, Fukumoto explains about them having no skill. Hearing them having talked down on skill-less people makes the orange-haired girl nervous, because in this industry the people not having skills are known as the incompetents and gets often teased by those having skills. The adventurers place their hand forward and says them to learn a thing or two from them. The girl nervously shakes their hand, while Seiki just greets in formal way. Now they ask them to follow them, and they will explain the rules in the meanwhile. The girl rushes in, and Seiki think he would have preferred if they had told them beforehand. With this, he starts to move toward the gate. On the way, if looks at his status window and thinks if he is incompetent, then what he is looking at right now. At this, we are shown his status screen again, but this time he has a skill called Forbidden Restriction. He then tells that at the guild it did not display because it is a hidden skill, and what this do is quite simple. The skill allows the user to use their previous life magic in exchange of skill points obtained, and in this way no MP will be consumed. In short, his goal is to get stronger and level up to obtain skill points. With those points, he will restore magic he used in his previous life. To summarize, he is the reincarnated one. We are shown his previous life where he always has been dominating his foe and magic monsters like dragons and wyvern with ease, because he excelled at magic and was known as the solitary Archmage. But that life, even with mastery of all kind of magic, he never once felt an essence of happiness. He has obtained a sister who is most precious to him in the entire world, and nothing can hold a candle to her. 500 million yen and not an amount to be earned by lifetime, even of one work to death. It's the reason he became an adventurer, to earn money as soon as possible. This amount even may be difficult for adventurers of S-class, but it's not impossible for him and his skill. He plans to make the money required for the treatment whatever he has to do, so he hopes his sister can hang in for that long. The scene then shifts to the dungeon, where Fukumoto and his team are effortlessly defeating the monsters. After clearing the area, Fukumoto tells Siki that they were able to handle the monsters so easily because it's only an E-rank dungeon. He then confidently tells the others to watch him closely, declaring, "This is what it means to be a C-rank adventurer." The orange-haired girl, Amami, responds enthusiastically, "Yes, of course." Finding Siki down, she asks him if something has happened to him, to which he just replies he is okay, but she, Amami, seems to be enjoying herself in the dungeon. Siki realizes that the adventurers are not planning to teach them anything. He just accepts that it is better than having being threatened by them instead. As he was deep in thought, Amami replies to his previous question that she always has dreamed about being an adventurer, so of course she is excited to see them in action. Seeing her enthusiasm, he tells that they need to observe them closely to learn. As they were fighting, a monster seems to be about to attack them as they were warned by the adventurers. Luckily, a pillar falls on it, killing it. Looking at the scene, Fukumoto asks them if they are alright. Amami replies that they are alright, and then says to Siki how lucky they were that the pillar fell in time. Siki looks at his sword and replies that they were lucky indeed. Now at the boss chamber, they reach at its entrance. With confidence, they enters the room. As they entered, the surroundings abruptly changed into a stark white room. A mechanical voice echoed, stating that the dungeon conditions had been cleared. It listed them, reaching the boss room without taking damage, bringing 2 newcomers, and accompanying one who had not yet awakened. Immediately after, the voice announced the spawning of an extra boss. A large, intimidating minotaur appeared, wielding a massive blade. With a thunderous roar, the chamber's entrance sealed shut, trapping everyone inside. In a panic, Amami asked Siki if the adventurers would be able to handle the boss. He replied grimly that all they could do now was watch and hope. What followed was less of a battle and more of a massacre. The boss was effortlessly one-shotting the tank. Siki quickly assessed the situation. If they kept charging in blindly, they'd be countered and picked off. Without wasting time, he ran toward the boss, hoping he had something that might help. Just as Fukumoto was about to be struck down, he lamented that he had failed to avenge his fallen friend. At that moment, Siki rushed in and parried the boss's attack. Shocked, Fukumoto looked at him. Amid the chaos, Siki told him he had a plan and asked him to cooperate. The protagonist pondered over the hidden skill known as Forbidden Restriction. There had to be a reason why it was labeled as forbidden and restricted. He realized that once he acquired a skill, the Forbidden Restriction would allow him to use magic without expending any MP. However, the cost was severe. His spells would be sealed initially. Even though he possessed magic circuits within his body, he couldn't activate any magic. But once he freed himself from these restrictions, he would surpass the power he wielded in his previous life. Meanwhile, deep within the dungeon, Siki was trying to convince Fukumoto to support his strategy. Fukumoto, baffled by Siki's sudden command and movements, questioned whether Siki was truly incompetent or if he had been pretending. Frustrated, he demanded to know if Siki had lied to them all along. But Siki, remaining calm, told him to save the interrogation for later. They had bigger problems at hand. Defeating the enemy took precedence over anything else. He asked Fukumoto and the others to buy him some time. Amid the chaos, Fukumoto reluctantly agreed, saying he would do whatever he could. As the boss charged, a magical attack from a worn-out party member disrupted its advance. Though battered and fatigued, the attacker sought revenge for their fallen teammate. As the intense battle continued, Fukumoto asked how much time Siki needed. Siki replied that 3 minutes would suffice. Hearing this, Fukumoto groaned in dismay, muttering that this might be the end for him. In that moment, Siki recalled his previous life's battle against the Minotaurs. Those monstrous beings were leagues beyond anything found in the current dungeon, and if things stayed as they were, his party would be annihilated. Urgently, he rushed over to Amami. Amami, still shaken, asked how he had managed to parry the boss's previous attack. Siki replied that he might have found a way to defeat it. He then asked for her help in executing his plan. Terrified at the thought of confronting the boss, Amami froze. Siki reminded her of her dreams. Had she not always wanted to become an adventurer? Caught off guard by his words, she hesitated, but after a moment of reflection, she agreed to help and asked what her role would be. Siki, noting their limited time, simply instructed her to follow his lead. He asked her to sit still, then came behind her and raised his hand, reinforcing it with a subtle magic spell. Before proceeding, he asked her not to get angry. As she started to turn around, he suddenly put his hand on her back. Flustered, Amami gasped, but Siki quickly tells Amami to, please trust him. He understood that minotaurs were vulnerable to magic, but their current lack of firepower and low levels made it impossible to deal a fatal blow. And due to forbidden restriction, he couldn't cast any spells himself. So he decided to utilize Amami's magic circuits instead. By manipulating her circuits and guiding the necessary movements, he could channel magic through her. Despite his logical approach, Siki couldn't help but feel awkward. Amami's patience eventually wore thin, and she asked him to stop. But just then, she felt a sudden surge of power course through her body. Do you feel stronger? Siki asked. Amami blinked, confused. What did you do to me? I've made it so you can now use magical power, he replied. But I'm skill-less, she said, bewildered. How is that even possible? You have a talent for it. Siki answered, I can't use magic for now, so I'm relying on you. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Amami tried her best to remain focused. Back at the front lines, chaos reigned. Fukumoto's party was nearing collapse, exhausted and barely able to stand. He shouted toward Siki, urging him to hurry. If you're going to do something, do it now. We're not going to last much longer. Amami, now under immense pressure, looked at Siki nervously. He told her to repeat the incantation after him. I'll be speaking an unfamiliar language, he explained. But I'll keep it short. Amami nodded and began chanting the spell with intense focus. Siki, observing her unwavering concentration despite her lack of combat experience, felt a sense of comfort. As the Minotaur advanced toward Fukumoto to deliver the final blow, Siki gave the signal. Amami, raise your hand and point it at the boss. Pretend you're aiming a weapon. She followed his instruction. Now repeat the words. The chant translated to Crimson Lotus Fireball. A massive fireball erupted from her hand, hurtling toward the Minotaur. The beast, caught off guard, couldn't react in time. The fireball struck with overwhelming force, and bringing it down with a single, devastating blast. Amami stared at the aftermath in disbelief. That was incredible, she whispered, impressed by the display of power. But Siki quickly corrected her. That wasn't me, it was all you. She blushed and thanked him, and a glowing pop-up menu appeared before them. The system displayed the item obtained, a B-rank twin-handed axe, once wielded by the boss itself. Additionally, a crimson crystal gleamed within the boss's chamber. Another notification popped up, a level-up prompt accompanied by a new title, Reincarnated Archmage. After the battle in the dungeon, Siki and Amami exited and immediately called for emergency assistance for the injured. Fortunately, no one had died, but several adventurers were severely wounded. Siki admitted he had no excuse for what they went through. Deep inside the dungeon core remained intact. Destroying it would cause the entire dungeon to collapse. However, in some cases, the core is preserved to convert the area into a training ground for adventurers. Siki examined it carefully. It reminded him of the technology from his own world. Later, at the Adventurers Guild, Siki and Amami waited patiently. They had submitted their adventurer cards, which recorded the monsters they had defeated. These records were used for fairly distributing rewards based on each individual's contribution. A guild official approached them, introduced himself, and returned their cards. He mentioned he had a few questions regarding the extra boss found in the dungeon. Siki began to worry. He wasn't sure whether Amami would keep her promise or not. A brief flashback showed the moment Siki had asked her to keep the fact that she gained magical powers through his help a secret. When she asked him why, he explained that it would only bring unnecessary attention, especially from the guild, and he didn't want to be constantly bothered. He needed to earn money quickly, without distractions. Understanding there was more to his story, Amami agreed. Then, somewhat hesitantly, She asked for a favor. She wanted to become his disciple. Siki paused before refusing. Amami's expression fell, but he clarified his reasoning. It wasn't because he found her bothersome. Instead, it was due to her reaction in the dungeon. He didn't believe she was cut out to be an adventurer. Teaching her magic could one day lead her to a death she wasn't prepared for. Amami took his words to heart and quietly admitted he might be right. Back in the present, during the debriefing, Hamada from the Guild Affairs Department referenced their report, which stated that the Minotaur had been weakened and that, when the Fukumoto party was on the brink of death, Amami had delivered the final blow. Siki interjected, claiming they didn't have the skill to defeat such a powerful enemy on their own. Amami nodded in agreement. Hamada then asked what she was doing while the group was fighting. Amami replied that she had been watching from the sidelines and only joined the battle at the last moment, delivering the finishing blow with Siki's help. Siki confirmed her statement. Satisfied, Hamada noted that this explained why she was registered as the one who landed the final hit. Convinced by their explanation, Hamada pulled out 2 envelopes and handed one to each of them as their reward for defeating the boss. They thanked him and opened the envelopes. Siki expected maybe 20,000 yen. But to his surprise, the amount inside was 250,000 yen, far more than he had imagined. Meanwhile, Amami appeared flustered, wondering if it was really okay for her to receive such a large amount. Siki glanced at her envelope and was stunned to see it contained 3 million yen. Hamada explained that, according to guild rules, 75% of the reward is awarded to the person who lands the final hit, while the remaining 25% is divided among the rest of the contributors. The system was designed to ensure fairness by rewarding those who dealt the finishing blow and contributed critical damage. He added that if they had been registered as part of a clan, the reward would have been evenly split among the members. He encouraged them to consider joining a clan in the future. With that, Hamada took his leave, remarking that the guild had high expectations for both of them. Siki chuckled and replied, "We're just a couple of incompetents, but we'll do our best." As Siki walked home, he reflected on how he had earned 250,000 yen on his very first day, an amount equal to what he used to make in an entire month. He couldn't help but be amazed. Along the way, Amami tried to hand him her share of the reward, saying she couldn't accept it since she hadn't done anything significant. Siki thought back to the battle and told her he wouldn't have been able to accomplish anything alone. He insisted that she keep it and added that it would become troublesome for him if the guild discovered she had transferred her earnings to him. Still hesitant, at that, Siki looked her dead in the eyes and said, "If neither of us needs it, then let's just burn it." Amami panicked at his words and quickly responded that it would be a terrible waste to destroy that much money. Eventually, he managed to convince her to accept the reward. They exchanged contact information before going their separate ways. Later that night, Siki sat in his room, reflecting on the day. It had been a good fight. He felt proud that his instincts hadn't dulled over time. He glanced at the check again and thought, all this for just taking down a Minotaur. The adventurer's life, it seemed, paid exceptionally well. Just then, he received a text from his younger sister. She had sent a picture of herself eating pudding and added a cheerful message saying she was feeling better, so much better, in fact, that she'd eaten 3. Seeing her smile and her small victories fueled Siki's determination even more. For her sake, he vowed to earn whatever amount was needed. To do that, he knew he had to remove the restrictions holding him back. Remembering how he had leveled up significantly during his first dungeon raid, he opened his status window and used his newly acquired skill points. The system notified him that he had reached level 10 and could now summon a management fairy. Moments later, a small figure suddenly appeared on his table. Judging by its size and glowing form, Siki realized it was indeed a fairy. As it stirred awake, it glared at him and demanded to know what he had been doing for the past 20 years without training. Siki panicked, thinking it was angry with him, and hurried to calm it down. He asked if it could introduce itself. The fairy replied that she had been created by him in his previous life. Her sole purpose was to manage the forbidden restrictions and to make him stronger. The fairy, clearly disappointed, scolded him for being lazy for the past 20 years. He tried to recall the moment he had created her, but no memory surfaced. At this, the fairy commented that he might be missing a portion of his memories. Trying to focus, Siki finally remembered something. The fairy seemed surprised, but he clarified that it was a fragmented memory from when he was dying. He recalled suffering from an incurable disease that gradually weakened him day by day. The fairy offered a hint, saying she was born after his death. The realization that both the system and the fairy were created posthumously led Siki to suspect that his reincarnation might not have been accidental. Perhaps he had arranged something prior to his death. The fairy quickly dismissed his thoughts, telling him not to dwell on it, as it would be a waste of energy. Siki agreed. It was likely she couldn't reveal more due to certain constraints. Maybe he had placed restrictions on her in the past. Her hesitant expression implied that if the circumstances changed, she might be able to share more. Returning to the main point, he asked her what she meant when she said she would make him stronger. She replied that she would update the system to help him grow more powerful and faster. The mention of an update intrigued him. It sounded far more efficient than simply exchanging points. Confirming his thoughts, the fairy initiated the update, introducing a new feature called Item Trade. Through it, he could obtain items he had possessed in his past life, though with quantity limitations. He asked if this included the contents of his old item box, a hyperspace storage he used in his previous life. She confirmed it did, mentioning that he had been quite the collector, and many items had been stored away. As he grew impressed, she quickly added that there was a catch, a trade condition. Realizing that every good system had its drawbacks, Siki concluded this limitation must have been something he himself had implemented. When he grumbled, the fairy playfully warned that if he was going to complain, she wouldn't let him use it. He quickly assured her he would make good use of it. Eagerly, Siki began browsing the item list. As he reviewed the valuable possessions from his past, he grew convinced that they were indeed his. He searched for one item in particular, the omnipotent elixir, a potion capable of healing all injuries and curing any illness. After some searching, he found it. There were 5 in stock, each priced at 500 million yen. Seeing the cost, Siki accepted that he would have to earn that kind of money eventually. Observing his expression, the fairy seemed satisfied, recognizing that he had found his motivation. She then told him there was one more thing he should know. During his battle with the Minotaur, believing he would grow more quickly under pressure, she had secretly placed a buff on him. This buff allowed him to earn double the experience points when fighting strong enemies. Siki let out a sigh, wondering how he'd even designed a system like this. Still, he knew it would be a huge help. After all, he had always chosen to fight stronger opponents from the start. With renewed determination, he declared that he would make full use of the system. Seeing him so motivated, the fairy beamed with joy. Now curious, Siki asked for her name. She responded that he had never given her one. He offered to name her, warning her not to blame him if she didn't like it. After a brief pause, he chose the name Sphere. To his surprise, she liked it and gave him permission to call her that. Watching her enjoy the name brought a small smile to his face. The fairy quickly changed the subject, demanding that he not slack off again. She then made a list of demands, a prepared bath, 2 desserts a day, and a refrigerator stocked full of ice cream. Upon hearing her demands, Siki sighed and reminded the fairy that all of it, baths, desserts, and ice cream, would cost money. She retorted with a threat. If he didn't comply, she could make the system stop working for him entirely. Surrendering to her ultimatum, Siki reluctantly agreed, deciding to treat it as the price for using the system. With a satisfied grin, the fairy told him to prepare for the day and then vanished. Siki could only think, well, if nothing else, she's like a storm, sudden and overwhelming. Now left alone, he began strategizing. Given his current condition, he figured he was somewhere between an F and E-rank adventurer. That gave him the perfect opportunity to grow from the bottom up. He reviewed the available dungeon raids, searching for one that would provide a challenge without being too overwhelming. The next day, Siki arrived at the gate of a D-rank dungeon, one he had joined through the guild. As an F-rank adventurer, the only reason he had been accepted was to fill the required headcount for the current raid team. One by one, the other raid members began to gather. Soon, a man named Takai approached and greeted Siki. The others glanced at him curiously as he returned their greetings. Takai explained that they had been short one member and were lucky Siki had joined. Another member teased Siki, saying he wouldn't be getting any loot. Takai tried to ease the tension, telling his team not to be too harsh. But Siki interjected, saying it was better not to receive any special treatment. especially since he didn't even have a proper skill yet. Still, he promised to make up for it in other ways. One of the raid members reassured him, saying there was no need to worry. After all, there were already 3 C-rankers in the squad, so the raid should be relatively easy. Hearing this, Siki realized that was likely why they had accepted an F rank like him. The same member confirmed his suspicion. Among the group was Ozawa, a D ranker. From this, Siki deduced that the girl in the party must be one of the C rankers. Judging by her appearance, she looked to be around the same age as his younger sister. With everyone assembled, the team entered the dungeon with renewed motivation. However, just as they were about to cross the threshold, Siki noticed something strange. The member next to him was making a very odd face, and it immediately raised his suspicions. Something was off. Inside the D-rank dungeon, the raid party moved efficiently. Each member demonstrated impressive teamwork, using various skills to defeat the monsters that stood in their way. Siki, for the moment, stayed toward the back, quietly observing and wondering when the right time to jump into action would be. Suddenly, he noticed an orc preparing to unleash a fire breath attack aimed directly at the party's archer. She seemed unaware of the danger. Not wanting things to get messy, Siki immediately rushed in to intercept. The other members shouted in concern, warning him that he could get hurt. Siki, undeterred, replied that he couldn't allow a lady to be harmed by an incoming attack. The girl blushed, flustered by his words. Siki successfully blocked the orc's attack and decided it was the perfect time to test out his new skill. The previous night, after reaching level 10, he had earned enough skill points to unlock a new ability. When browsing his options, he found 2 skill trees available, Fireball and Enhancement. Each tree would expand into a broader set of abilities once selected. He quickly deduced that Fireball was focused on long to mid-range combat, while Enhancement offered more versatile applications, particularly useful for close combat. Remembering that due to the forbidden restriction, he wouldn't need to expend MP to use skills, he wondered if this meant he could cast them endlessly. Believing Enhancement to be more practical, he selected it. Examining the skill tree, he found the right side branch was tailored for melee combat. With limited points, he chose the path that specialized in point-blank fighting styles. Back in the present, as Siki clashed with the orc, his teammates yelled for him to fall back. They assumed he was still skill-less and feared for his safety. Ignoring their warnings, Siki replied with a smirk, saying even a filler like him had some fight in him. He then activated a skill called Sonic Impact, instantly defeating the orc in a single hit. Thanks to the buff he received earlier, his experience points were doubled, and he leveled up immediately. The entire team was stunned by the power behind his strike. Having gained 2 levels, Siki compared the difficulty of this battle with the Minotaur fight. Though the Minotaur had been tougher, this was manageable, and the buff was clearly working in his favor. Suzuka's, the C-rank girl, approached him and asked how he was so strong. She questioned whether he had a skill, and he admitted he had acquired one just the day before. She scolded him, saying he should have told them sooner so they could plan accordingly. Siki agreed. She lectured him about the importance of watching each other's backs, reminding him that if anything happened to him, it would be too late. Siki nodded. She muttered that it was fine as long as he understood. Then, recalling how he saved her earlier, she formally thanked him. Siki smiled and graciously accepted her thanks. Meanwhile, the members who had mocked him earlier began to reconsider. They suggested splitting the loot evenly now. Takai agreed, saying it was a good idea. If he's this strong, the dungeon will be cleared faster. No complaints from me, he added. The raid continued, and along the way, other teammates began apologizing to Siki for having underestimated him. He took it well, admitting it was his fault for not being upfront. He feared they might have rejected his request to join if they'd known. But now, seeing how they extended a hand to work together moving forward, he felt a bit of happiness. With a soft smile, he said he'd do his best. The raid proceeded smoothly, and before long, they had successfully defeated the dungeon boss. Thanks to his buff, Siki gained double experience again and reached level 17. Back at the guild, the party celebrated their success. Siki reflected on how smoothly everything had gone, thanks in part to his abilities. When praised by the others, Siki humbly responded that it had all been a team effort. Just as the leader of the group began planning a celebration, chaos erupted. Someone suddenly ran toward the leader and stabbed him. Everyone froze in shock. The leader, stunned, turned to see his attacker, none other than Ozawa. Before he could react, Ozawa delivered the finishing blow. The team cried out in disbelief, demanding to know what he was doing. Ozawa, wearing a twisted expression, calmly replied, "I'm just committing a crime." At the sight of Ozawa's betrayal, Takai was consumed with fury and charged blindly toward him. Ozawa, unfazed, effortlessly parried Takai's attacks and mocked him. "That angry face doesn't suit you," he sneered. "Where did that bright smile from earlier go?" Enraged, Takai shouted for him to shut up while trying to land a solid hit. As Siki and Suzuki's attempted to intervene, Takai raised a hand to stop them in their tracks. "Stay out of this," he said firmly. "I won't feel at ease until I defeat him myself." Seeing how overcome with rage he was, Suzuki's tried to reason with him. "Don't be reckless. Think rationally," she pleaded. But Siki gently interrupted her. "He's free to do what he wants," Siki said quietly. "Just as I have ideals I won't give up on, I'll respect his decision this time." Suzuki's frowned. "But none of this is worth dying over." Siki nodded slightly. "You might be right when you look at it logically. But this world isn't always logical. What we're seeing now, revenge for someone important, it's irrational, but it's real." Though she still found it foolish, she began to understand. "It's stupid," she muttered, "but I get it." Takai thanked Siki with a brief nod. "Leave Ozawa to me." They moved into the chamber near the dungeon's core. Siki couldn't help but feel uneasy. The weapon Ozawa wielded radiated an ominous presence. It wasn't just dangerous, it felt as if it had taken many lives. Taking a peek at its stats, Siki gasped. It was an A-rank weapon, granting plus 200 attack power and plus 100 agility, perfect for an assassin-type fighter. What made it truly terrifying, however, was its passive ability. From its aura, the weapon had clearly been enhanced multiple times. Ozawa grinned. "Do you really think you can beat me?" Without hesitation, Takai leapt forward, swinging his long sword with immense power and knocking Ozawa back. But even after landing the blow, something felt off. That hit should have broken through Ozawa's defenses. He's hiding something, Takai thought. There's no way he's just a C-rank. As Takai tried to assess the situation, Ozawa suddenly reappeared, whispering from behind him. "That long sword of yours might work on mindless monsters, but against humans, it's too slow." Takai didn't have time to react. Takai's shoulder gets injured from Ozawa's strike. Mocking him, Ozawa said, "You said you were going to kill me? Was that really your plan, with that level of power?" Takai staggered, but pulled out a small bottle from his pouch. It was a gift he'd received for his birthday, a rare potion, given to him by their captain, a close friend, and someone who respected his hard work and dedication to the team. He recalled the captain's words, "This might save you one day, when you're in a tight spot." As he prepared to drink the potion, Ozawa sneered. "Really? You're drinking potions now?" he taunted. But before Ozawa could strike again, he was suddenly knocked backward by a powerful force. What just happened? He wondered in shock. Takai straightened, eyes gleaming with renewed strength. "Still think I'm a fool?" The potion's effects activated immediately, and a system window displayed the buffs, double strength for 5 minutes, followed by reduced attack power for the next 5. With a renewed grip on his sword, Takai was ready for round 2. Even with the potion's effects still active, Takai struggled to keep up with Ozawa's speed. Like a wild beast, Ozawa closed the distance in a flash, launching a relentless barrage of attacks, one of which cost Takai his eye. As the assault continued, Ozawa mocked him, taunting him for daring to challenge someone so far out of his league. Takai staggered and muttered an apology to Suzuki, their captain. "I'm sorry, it seems I won't be able to avenge you after all." Seeing Takai in such a state, Suzuki's could no longer watch from the sidelines. She launched an arrow toward Ozawa and activated her skill. Annoyed by the interference, Ozawa dodged the arrows and immediately lunged toward her. He pinned her down, his expression twisted in rage. "Weren't you told not to interfere?" Grabbing her face, he raised his dagger, but before the fatal blow could land, his attack was intercepted. Siki had stepped in, blocking the strike with his sword. Both Suzuki's and Ozawa were stunned. With a glare full of killing intent, Ozawa sneered and muttered that he might have to abandon the idea of earning a bonus. Siki calmly turned to Takai. Mind if I take care of this lunatic? Takai, clutching his wound, nodded. Please defeat him for me. Siki faced Ozawa and said flatly, As you heard, I'm taking over now. Ozawa stood and scowled. You're seriously starting to get on my nerves with that smug attitude. You really think you can beat me too? Before he could finish, Siki struck with sonic impact, catching Ozawa off guard. You're not someone worth being intimidated by, he said. Reeling from the blow, Ozawa shouted. You just got your skill, and you're already this flashy. Knowing full well that Ozawa's speed and weapon were deadly, Siki Iori made up his mind. He wouldn't hold anything back in this fight. As the battle was about to begin, Ozawa attempted to intimidate Siki by mocking him as just a filler. He rushed in at full speed, darting around Siki before attempting a surprise attack. But to his shock, Siki blocked it. Ozawa was stunned. This was the second time his strike had been stopped. You're no big shot, Siki said calmly, mocking him. The taunt hit a nerve. Ozawa's expression twisted as he snarled. Fine. I'll make you my target for the bonus kill instead. He leapt back and boasted that Siki wouldn't be able to keep up with his speed anymore. Once again, he began bouncing rapidly around him, moving even faster than before. But Siki remained composed. You should have warned me, he said. Your speed is nothing special. Activating the skill haste, Siki's movements became a blur, and he began overpowering Ozawa in close combat. Watching in disbelief, Suzuki's was stunned by how strong he had become. Ozawa, too, was alarmed. None of Siki's movements, swordplay, or tactics resembled a novice's. More than that, there was an overwhelming, monstrous aura surrounding him, an aura that felt like infinite strength. In fear, Ozawa muttered, Just who in the world are you? With his weapon raised, Siki simply replied, I'm just a party filler. Overwhelmed and pushed back, Ozawa couldn't understand how someone supposedly beneath him in class and status was defeating him so thoroughly. Desperate, he looked around and spotted Suzuki's hiding nearby. Grinning, he rushed toward her to take her hostage. But before he could reach her, Siki appeared behind him and landed a powerful, reinforced strike. That was the most predictable move you could have made, he said coldly. A coward's plan suits a coward. Ozawa, struck hard, tried to retaliate with a skill, but nothing happened. It's over, Siki said. You can't use your skills anymore. What did you do to me? Ozawa stammered. Siki gave a casual shrug. He knew that skills and magic both relied on mana, which flowed through the body's magic circuits. With his last strike, he had precisely hit a weak point, shutting down Ozawa's mana channels, much like striking a pressure point. Now Ozawa's mana was blocked, and his skills were unusable. Realizing the extent of his disadvantage, Ozawa was filled with despair. His speed had been countered, his skills neutralized. He had been completely cornered by Siki. Then, Ozawa glanced at his dagger and began laughing maniacally. Let me tell you something useful, he said, his voice unsettling. Kill me with this dagger. You'll gain more experience than you ever would from any monster. The weapon gets stronger too. Siki narrowed his eyes, but listened as Ozawa continued. Everyone knows this, but they keep it hidden. If word got out, adventurers would start killing each other for power. That's why it's kept secret. His twisted logic disturbed Suzuki's. Ozawa extended the dagger toward Siki. Take it. Kill me. Experience it for yourself. But Siki's expression softened. I feel sorry for you. The words stunned both Suzuki's and Ozawa. Siki continued. I can understand the desperation, the desire to escape the curse of weakness, the hunger to grow stronger. If I didn't have the system with me, maybe I would have followed the same path just to save my sister. He recalled people from his past life who had been forced to abandon morality in their pursuit of power. When you're backed into a corner, you stop being picky about your methods. Infuriated, Ozawa growled. What do you even know about me? Nothing, Siki admitted. But I don't need to. Maybe we really are the same. Those words alarmed Suzuki's, and Ozawa kept shouting. Then kill me. If we're the same, do it. But Siki shook his head. No. If I kill you now, a part of me dies too. And I'm not willing to lose that part of myself. Ozawa clenched his teeth. What a naive mindset. Suddenly, smoke filled the chamber. Ozawa had activated a hidden smoke bomb from his mouth. In the chaos, he attempted to end his own life, hoping to shatter Siki's ideals by forcing him to witness it. Suzuki screamed in panic. Stop! But Siki rushed forward, piercing through the smoke, and knocked Ozawa unconscious just in time. Don't die so easily, he said. You still have to atone for your sins. As the dust settled and the fight came to an end, Suzuki's approached Siki. When you said you might be the same as him, did you really mean that? He gave her a faint smile. Maybe I felt like it in the moment. She shook her head. Well, I don't see it. You refused to kill him. You saved him. That's not something the same person would do. Smiling gently, he asked, Were you worried about me? She blushed and yelled. Of course I was. You were giving off seriously scary vibes back there. With a chuckle, Siki reached out and gave her a light pat on the head. Sorry for scaring you, and thank you for worrying. Suzuki's looked away, flustered. That's my line, she muttered. To summarize the events following the battle, Ozawa was taken into custody by security forces and promptly detained. With tears in his eyes, Takai thanked Siki, recognizing him as the one who had truly saved everyone. Thanks to Siki's swift intervention, even Suzuki, their leader who had been stabbed, managed to survive. Ozawa had narrowly missed hitting any vital organs, and since the battle ended quickly, Suzuki was able to receive immediate care and escape death. With the case officially closed, Siki retrieved 2 cans of black coffee from a vending machine and offered one to Suzuki's. Only black coffee was left. Hope that's okay, he said. It might be a bit much for a kid. Grabbing the can with a huff, she snapped back. Don't treat me like a child. Siki gave her a look that clearly read, classic tsundere. She took a bold sip of the coffee, and her face instantly twisted into a look of horror, as if she had tasted something vile and was on the verge of collapse. Sitting beside her, he asked, So, what was it you wanted to talk about? She glanced at him and replied, I want to know the secret behind your strength. Siki shrugged. There's no secret. Then, turning the question around, he asked, How are you working as an adventurer at your age? You look like a middle schooler. Slamming the can down with force, she shouted, That doesn't matter. And for your information, I'm in high school. Caught off guard, Siki muttered. So, you're older than Kodoha. Hearing the unfamiliar name, Suzuki's tilted her head. Kodoha. She's my little sister, Siki explained. Suzuki's grinned. Oh, you have a little sister. She teased him lightly, and when he asked what she meant by that, she continued, Your personality and calm demeanor totally give off dependable big brother vibes. Is that supposed to be a compliment? He asked. She nodded. Your strength and adaptability are incredible. Thanks, he replied, a little awkwardly. Still curious, she repeated her earlier question about his strength, but this time, in an exaggerated, cute little sister voice. Siki recoiled. Please stop. That voice is going to haunt my dreams. Unfazed, she persisted, insisting she wanted to learn the secret behind his power. With a sigh, Siki finally gave her a straight answer. I'm not telling you. You're so stingy, she pouted. Yeah, I am, he replied with a smirk. Not giving up, she began throwing playful jabs at him. No girl's ever gonna fall for a guy like you, she said with mock disapproval. As they bantered, Suzuki's suddenly noticed something. Hey, give me your hand, she said. Confused, Siki held it out. She spotted a small cut on one of his fingers and immediately reached into her bag, pulling out a few band-aids. Grinning, she gently applied them. Her carefree, cheerful demeanor threw Siki off for a moment. It was unexpected, but somehow, it made him smile. Noticing the change in his expression, Suzuki's leaned in. You definitely just grinned, she said teasingly. It was just a small smile, at best, he replied. A smile is a smile, she insisted. Maybe it's because you were being treated by a cute high schooler? Switching topics, she suddenly asked, Hey, want to exchange contact info? She explained that she'd been struggling to manage raid scheduling, handle data, and organize everything. Siki, slightly surprised, responded, If it's just that kind of stuff, I'll help you out anytime. Doesn't sound like a big deal. Without missing a beat, Suzuki's immediately tried to recruit him for the next dungeon raid. Siki chuckled. Only if I have time. She puffed her cheeks and pouted. That's not any time. Then, after their conversation ended, the two of them left the guild headquarters together. As they walked out, Suzuki's turned to Siki and said she wanted to meet his sister next time. She was sure they'd get along well, especially since they were close in age. Siki watched her go and thought that his sister might actually enjoy meeting someone like her. Later, after arriving home, Siki cleaned up and checked his phone. He found a few messages from his sister saying the nurse had scolded her again today because she'd played too many games. Reading that made him smile, and he replied, telling her that there was someone who wanted to meet her. Just then, a deep, menacing voice called out his name. Suddenly, smoke filled the entire room. From within the smoke, Sphere emerged, looking absolutely furious. She stormed in, shouting at the top of her lungs, demanding to know how he could forget. In a full-blown outburst, she listed off everything he'd missed: the bath, 2 snacks, and an entire fridge full of ice cream. The only thing he had managed to do today was the bath. At that moment, Siki remembered. He had completely forgotten about his daily tasks. Not a single one had been completed. Sphere glared at him and warned that if he kept slacking off, she would tamper with the system and make it inaccessible. Realizing how serious she was, Siki quickly apologized and promised to take care of everything properly starting tomorrow. He swore on it. Seeing how genuinely remorseful he was, Sphere finally sighed and decided to forgive him. Just this once. Then, in an instant, her mood shifted and she grinned. She had some good news to share. Siki narrowed his eyes. "What are you up to this time?" Beaming, Sphere declared, "I've added hidden dungeon keys to the item exchange shop." That caught Siki's attention immediately. A hidden dungeon meant new challenges and new power. After hearing the details about the hidden dungeon, Sphere explained that the key was for a highly difficult dungeon that required exactly 2 people to challenge it. This immediately piqued Siki's interest. Sphere urged him to click on the option, and a long list of labeled dungeon keys appeared, categorized by letters. Among them, one caught his eye. It had a discount tag. Seeing his interest, Sphere launched into a sales pitch, saying that desire always leads to action, and for that reason, there was a special half-price discount. Siki gave her a look and commented that she seemed a little too familiar with how the world worked. Sphere smirked. "No need for praise. Just use the key already and get stronger." Siki selected the option. "You didn't have to tell me twice." He noticed that even the discounted C-rank dungeon gate cost $1 million. Though he had the money, he hesitated. Sphere added, "The enemies inside are far stronger than those in regular dungeons. You'll earn significantly more experience points and skill points, especially useful for managing the forbidden restriction. With your buff, rewards will also be enhanced. It's high risk, high reward." Realizing that even a C-rank dungeon of this type was exponentially harder, Siki considered his options. Sphere smirked. "What? Are you chickening out?" Instead of responding with hesitation, Siki replied, "No. I'm planning to go for the 5 million yen B-rank dungeon." Surprised, Sphere laughed. "You're aiming higher? Interesting." She added that he could sell the items he earned in dungeons through the item exchange shop to afford the entry fee. Siki thought the system was incredibly convenient. "All of this," Sphere said proudly, "is the great inheritance from your previous life." "Then I should thank my past self," Siki said, and without further delay, he purchased the C-rank dungeon key. A glowing door materialized in front of him, leading to the hidden dungeon. "You're going now?" Sphere asked, surprised. "You just got back from a dungeon." Seeing his enthusiasm, Sphere smiled. He's definitely feeling it. "I'm not feeling anything. This is just normal for me," Siki replied. Sphere, clearly impressed by his drive, thought to herself, "He truly is the solitary Archmage." "Thanks, Sphere. I'm only growing stronger because of your help." Worried, she warned him to return in one piece before he thanked her. "That's the plan." Sphere waved him off. "You're not dying anytime soon anyway. But when you get back, I expect some ice cream." Siki smiled, opened the gate, and stepped through, teleporting into the unknown. Meanwhile, at the hospital where his sister was admitted, everything seemed calm. She sat quietly, her vitals stable. But after a few minutes, she began coughing violently. Her condition had worsened. Trying to stay composed, she attempted to get up and wash her hands, but her body gave out. She collapsed, and her lifeline monitor turned red, signaling a medical emergency. Nurses rushed into the room and found her unconscious. Back in the dungeon, Siki found himself in a vast forest unlike any he'd seen before. He immediately raised his guard, alert for nearby monsters. As he scanned the surroundings, he noticed some fruit hanging from the trees. Walking closer, he inspected the fruit and froze. Lenaha fruits, he muttered. These fruits existed in his original world, before he was reincarnated. Seeing them here stirred up waves of nostalgia. In his past life, Lenaha fruits were commonly used in alchemy. They weren't rare or valuable, and adventurers never went out of their way to gather them. However, their presence here signaled something else. If Lenaha fruits are here, he whispered, then that monster must be here too. Raising his hand, he flicked his fingers and began preparing spells. He activated Sonic Stream and followed it up with haste, launching himself into the air. Judging by his expression, his hunch had been right. A blur shot out from the trees, fast, nearly invisible. Lightning speed movement. That's definitely the one. Siki narrowed his eyes. He wouldn't have to go looking for it after all. Siki runs through the forest, chasing the turbo rat. He fails to match its incredible speed and realizes he needs a different strategy. Suddenly, Sphere appears and tells Siki about Itsenia. He learns that Sphere can enter dungeons as well. Meanwhile, Sphere explains that this dungeon is special, made specifically for him, and as his manager, she has the ability to interfere. Afterwards, Sphere complains that staying at home is boring, then changes her tone and admits she was worried about Siki, deciding to guide him through this place. Siki appreciates her concern and efforts. Furthermore, Sphere explains that Itsenia is a carnivorous plant that devours anything in its path. To win, Siki must lure the rat into the plant's territory. He agrees with Sphere's plan, but while running, he suddenly senses something behind him. A group of lizards and monsters begin chasing him. Siki panics, unsure whether to save himself or continue chasing the rat. Sphere guides him toward the plant's habitat. Suddenly, the rat slows down, and Siki realizes it's actually quite cute. And without eating the lahana fruits from the dungeon, its speed has dropped. He reaches out to catch the rat, but without warning, the carnivorous plant bursts from the ground. Sphere screams, thinking Siki is gone. However, a level-up sign appears as Siki strikes the mouth of Itsenia and escapes. A status window pops up, showing his new achievements. Sphere quickly checks if he's okay. Meanwhile, Siki finds himself in a deep pit surrounded by monsters and lizards. Sphere tells him to retreat and come back later with a better strategy. But before he can act, a lizard lunges toward him. Siki stands firm, activates his Crimson Lotus Fireball, and unleashes a powerful attack. Within moments, all the monsters and lizards were taken down. The status bar opens again, revealing that Siki's level has increased by 20. Sphere complains that guiding him causes her a lot of trouble, while Siki teases her by saying she does nothing but make noise. Sphere raises her voice, demanding to know what he meant. Siki quickly denies saying anything, and after a brief quarrel, they both calm down. Together, they notice that after his battle with the rat, Siki's stats have significantly improved. Sphere tells him to collect all the dropped items. Siki nods and checks the loot list, noticing several rare and unique items. He realizes that the drop rate for rare items in this dungeon is unusually high. Sphere asks to see the item list and tells him that if he sells them, he could earn millions. Siki stutters, realizing that if he continues clearing such dungeons, he could become rich in no time. Sphere then explains that at every rank, a hidden dungeon becomes available, but each dungeon has only one key at a time. Since Siki is currently at C rank, this was the only one he could access. Siki decides he'll raid a B rank dungeon next, but Sphere warns him that the gap between C and B ranks is enormous. Just then, they hear strange voices. The Naga, queen of this dungeon, half human and half serpent, appears before them. Siki prepares himself to enter a raid meant for level 150 players. Sphere objects, insisting that they've already reached their target and don't need to fight her. But Siki, confident and determined, wants to earn more money for Kodoha. To him, the Naga is nothing more than another opportunity to level up his game. Siki leaps toward the Naga with his sword drawn. The Naga's skin absorbs magic, protecting her from any form of magical damage. This kind of creature is considered a deadly foe for mages. Siki believes that if he avoids using magic and relies solely on his sword, he can defeat her. He marches forward and strikes, but quickly realizes that his weapon cannot harm her due to her extremely thick skin. Naga strikes at Siki with its venom, but Siki manages to dodge. Sphere shouts in alarm. Siki knows that if the venom reaches him, the game will be over, but he refuses to step back. He notices that he hasn't felt this nervous in a long time. Then, Siki activates his forbidden restriction skill, which allows him to store and retrieve items from another dimension. A menu appears, displaying his inventory, filled with items from both his past and current lives. Sphere instructs him to pick up the Minotaur's axe and notices that Siki has mastered parts of the forbidden restriction skill she taught him. Just as Siki grabs the axe, the Naga lunges toward him. He braces himself, aiming for her shoulder, but his strike misses. He's aware that he cannot afford to take any damage. Sphere urgently warns him that the Naga is about to counterattack. Moments later, she strikes, shattering Siki's weapon. Now, Siki examines the axe and realizes he cannot sell it. He understands that his weapons are useless in this situation. Determined, he stands his ground for one final attempt. He charges toward the Naga, points his finger, and unleashes a crimson fireball. Sphere immediately warns him that magic won't work here, that using magic will only help restore the Naga's energy. But Siki has a different plan. He analyzes the situation and concludes that if he can push her beyond her magic absorption limit, he might be able to defeat her. He knows that the forbidden restriction allows him to cast spells without consuming magic points, MP. With that in mind, Siki begins to unleash a relentless storm of fireballs toward the Naga, determined to reach her limit. Sphere shouts that using so much magic will harm his body, but Siki replies that this pain is better than losing Kotoha. He refuses to stop. The Naga moves forward, trying to block the attacks, but her body begins to crack and break apart. Just as Siki is about to pause, Sphere yells at him to keep going. The Naga isn't completely destroyed yet. Siki summons every last bit of his power for one final, massive fireball. The strike lands, and she is finally defeated. A level-up sign flashes before him, and the Naga's blade appears in his inventory. Sphere rushes to Siki's side to check if he's okay. Siki assures her that he's fine. Sphere praises his courage and tells him that now that the challenge is over, he'll automatically be transported back home. Siki falls asleep from exhaustion as Sphere initiates teleportation. However, when they arrive at their destination, Sphere realizes something is wrong. The place they've reached isn't their home. She hears approaching footsteps and quickly vanishes, leaving Siki alone. Moments later, an orange-haired girl enters the room and finds Siki Iori lying there. As Siki finally wakes up and notices that he is in a girl's room, he slowly gets up from the bed. Amami sees him awaken and lets out a sigh of relief. As soon as Siki hears her voice, he realizes that this is Amami's room. Amami explains that she found him lying on the floor while she was out walking and that he looked weak at the time. Siki thanks Amami for saving him. Amami smiles and says that his well-being is what matters most. She then asks why he was unconscious. Siki explains that he tried to enter a C-rank dungeon and became extremely exhausted. Amami, surprised, still can't believe that Siki actually went into a C-rank dungeon. Siki thanks her again for helping him. Amami replies that she only picked him up, but mentions that there have been many strange incidents lately involving people who are acquiring new skills. She informs him that his phone and shirt are placed on the side, and that his phone's screen is broken. Siki thanks her once more. Afterwards, Amami asks if he's hungry and tells him that she made porridge if he wants to eat some. Siki thinks porridge sounds like a great idea and agrees to have it. Amami mentions that she's only doing a little to repay him for saving her in the dungeon. Siki responds kindly that it's okay. She doesn't need to do much, and adds that porridge is a treat to eat. Amami smiles and leaves to bring the food. While waiting, Siki admires her kind behavior. As he looks around the room, he notices the cupboard and eat before the food gets cold. Siki, knowing he probably can't forget what he just saw, a moment later, Amami returns and apologizes for keep him waiting, and she tells Siki to eat before food gets cold. Siki starts to eat quietly. He compliments her cooking, and Amami explains that the secret ingredient is grated ginger. She adds that her mother used to make this dish for her whenever she was a child and got sick. Siki enjoys the meal and asks how she manages to live alone, away from her parents. Amami gently explains that her parents passed away during a monster attack 7 years ago. Siki regrets bringing up such a painful memory, but Amami assures him that she has grown used to it and that talking about it doesn't bother her much anymore. Siki realizes that this must be the reason she wants to become an adventurer. Amami confirms it, saying she wants to make sure others never have to experience what she did. She adds that it's not the only reason. She's wanted to be an adventurer since childhood because it's exciting and helps people grow stronger. That's why she wanted to become Siki's student back then. Siki admits that Amami has a lot of courage for still wanting to pursue adventuring despite her past. He bows before her, surprising Amami, who hesitates, not fully understanding what's happening. Siki continues, admitting that he was wrong to think she couldn't be an adventurer before, and asks her to become his student. Amami pauses, processing his words. Siki explains that courage is the most important trait of an adventurer, and that Amami has plenty of it. He adds that they will start training soon, as he is currently occupied with other tasks, and asks again if she wants to become his pupil. Amami, touched by his encouragement, agrees to be his student. Siki promises that he will train her to become the greatest adventurer of all time. Amami smiles and responds that she's looking forward to working with him. Siki sits at home, checking the items he obtained from the dungeon. Most of the equipment he acquired is rare. He has 2 Ogre Chief necklaces and decides to sell one, while keeping the rest for personal use. The item window shows that he possesses the Naga's poison blade. Since his own sword broke during the last battle, he decides to use this one instead. While reviewing his status, Sphere suddenly appears, holding an ice cream cone bigger than herself. She asks him about his stats. Siki tells Sphere that after checking his status bar, his level has increased to 70. Sphere responds that he's now around a C-rank adventurer. She adds that he has improved a lot, but there's still a long way to go. Sphere then compliments him on his skill points and mentions that the new magic spells he's acquiring are a great fit for him. Siki expresses his gratitude towards Sphere and turns his focus back to the items. He asks her how much he'll earn from selling the ones he currently has. The screen begins calculating the total, and it shows that he will receive 7 million yen from the sales, an amount far greater than his original goal of earning 5 million yen. With her ice cream cone in hand, Sphere sits beside Siki's phone, which suddenly starts ringing. She informs him that someone is calling. Siki is surprised since he had just repaired his phone moments ago, and now it's ringing already. When he checks the caller ID, he quickly picks up. It's Kotoha's doctor. Siki greets him. The doctor sounds relieved that Siki finally answered and explains that Kotoha's condition is getting worse. If her health continues to decline, she won't have much time left. The doctor asks Siki to stay with Kotoha while she's still conscious. Siki listens silently, unsure how to process the information. After a moment, he finally says that he wants to talk to Kotoha. When she answers, Siki softly tells her that it's her brother. Kotoha recognizes his voice immediately. Siki asks her to stay strong and tells her that he's found a treatment that might cure her. The doctor warns Siki to be careful. Kotoha responds, saying she's looking forward to it. Siki thanks her and asks her to hold on just a little longer. He puts his phone down and immediately asks Sphere if he can raid an upper-level A-rank dungeon, and whether he can make 5 million yen by clearing it. Sphere replies that while the chances of earning that much are good, it's also a very easy way to die. Siki admits it could be, but says he still has to go for it. Sphere warns him again that his powers are too low for such a challenge. She explains that if he takes on an A-rank dungeon while still below the required stats, there's no way he'll survive. After a brief silence, she asks if he still plans to go. Without hesitation, Siki answers, "Of course," adding that he doesn't have much time to spare. Sphere doesn't try to stop him this time, and instead supports his decision. Siki appreciates her trust. He clicks on the option for an A-rank dungeon, and both of them are instantly teleported. In a short while, Siki and Sphere are standing before a massive tower. Siki looks around, carefully observing the surroundings of the dungeon. Sphere begins explaining the guidelines, how he can win by raiding the tower and defeating its head. Siki nods, knowing this will be his longest and toughest fight yet. Moreover, Sphere tells him that there are a few areas inside the tower free from monsters, and she'll guide him toward those safe points. Siki feels slightly relieved after hearing that, but as soon as they reach the gate, Sphere points toward a huge white lion standing before them. The lion, Nemia, is the gatekeeper of the tower. Sphere asks Siki if he really thinks he can defeat such a creature. explaining that one needs to be at least level 320 to take down a beast like this, while Siki's level is only 70. Siki, however, looks at Nemia with calm confidence and tells Sphere to stay composed. He declares that fighting this lion will be effortless for him, and once he finishes with it, the rest of the monsters inside the tower will be easy to handle. Just as he finishes his sentence, Sphere shouts that the lion is about to attack. Siki fearlessly stands his ground, wanting to face it up close and test his new skill. He moves forward and strikes. Siki strikes and activates Tenma, a magic spell that boosts physical strength by surrounding the body with high levels of magical energy. Tenma is an incredibly powerful spell, but it consumes a large amount of MP to use. Siki continues attacking Nemia, the white lion. However, because of the forbidden restriction, he can unlock this spell with 0 MP, allowing him to fight against any A-rank creature even though he's only level 70. Still, Siki realizes that he cannot overburden his body again as he did when he fought the Naga. Suddenly, a new pop-up window appears mid-battle titled Unlock Special Quest. Siki looks confused. Sphere quickly explains that this special quest is meant for his personal progress. Siki feels overwhelmed, believing he already has too much on his plate, but he decides to take on the quest anyway. The pop-up reveals that if he defeats Nemia without killing it, he will gain summoning magic, and the lion will become his familiar. Siki notes that he's never seen summoning magic like this before and learns that having a familiar can greatly increase the combat ability of a solo fighter. A familiar supports its master in battle, making it easier to face stronger enemies alone. Before he can think further, Nemia attacks. Siki blocks the strike effortlessly and realizes that to complete the quest, he needs to tame the lion rather than destroy it. Immediately, he changes his approach and commands Nemia to lie down using a powerful attack. Nemia stays still for a brief moment, then roars and counterattacks with even greater force. Siki understands that he needs a new strategy. Sphere shouts in frustration, warning him not to fool around. Siki reassures her and explains his new plan to defeat the lion. He will show it the difference in their power. Sphere warns him again that Nemia is an A-rank beast, far stronger than him, and that it seems impossible to win this way. Siki calmly responds that it's not impossible and says he has already figured out the pattern of the lion's attacks. He adds that defeating Nemia is the key to conquering this hidden dungeon. Siki launches forward, punching Nemia with rapid strikes. The lion roars fiercely, its eyes glowing with blinding light before it charges again. Siki warns the beast that he knows all of its tricks, and since it refuses to calm down, it will now face punishment. He starts punching the lion again and again, commanding it to surrender. He doesn't stop attacking until, at last, the lion collapses in defeat. Siki spares its life, and the mighty lion bows before him in submission. Sphere watches in disbelief. Siki has actually defeated an A-rank lion. He orders Nemia to lie down, and the creature obediently follows his command. Sphere continues to wonder how such a powerful beast could have submitted to Siki so easily. Finally, Siki clears the special quest and receives his rewards. He obtains new equipment called the White Lion Gauntlets. Siki feels impressed that he gained experience points and a powerful new item simply by taming the lion. Sphere explains that creating a familiar and completing a special quest is far more difficult than just fighting and controlling monsters, and that he even earns experience points for doing so. A status bar appears before Siki, showing that his level has increased by 50. He asks Sphere about the different levels of the tower so that before entering, he can assign new skills strategically. Sphere replies sarcastically, saying, "Of course, she knows everything about the tower." Siki laughs and teases her, and Sphere gives him an attitude in return. He then politely requests her to explain, and she finally agrees, beginning her detailed description. Sphere continues, explaining that on the first level, there are countless zombie-like creatures of B rank. Their numbers are so vast that if their strength were combined, even a C-rank dungeon would be nothing compared to them. Siki picks a new skill without listening to her full explanation. Sphere scolds him, saying that the spell he chose is difficult and not something she recommends. But Siki confidently explains that every skill he unlocks is valuable, and by defeating all the enemies on the lower floors, he'll turn them into experience points that will help him climb higher. Sphere questions his overconfidence, but Siki reassures her to stay calm. Together, they step toward the entrance of the tower, ready to face whatever challenges await them inside. Siki and Sphere stand before the massive tower. Before entering, Sphere reminds him that once they go inside, they can't leave until they reach the top. She asks if he still wants to proceed. Without hesitation, Siki answers yes. Sphere isn't surprised and comments that he really doesn't care about himself. Siki replies that he's not afraid for his own life, he's afraid for his sister's. The gates of the tower open slowly, creaking as they move. As they walk inside, the gates slam shut behind them, and strange glowing symbols appear on the walls, signaling that there's no way out now. Sphere warns Siki that lower-level monsters are approaching. Siki stays calm and activates the new magic he earned from the special quest. He whispers, "Covert," and his body turns invisible. Then, he uses summoning magic to call forth Nemia, the white lion. He orders Nemia to draw the monster's attention and keep moving around the floor. The undead monsters immediately lock onto the lion and begin chasing him. Siki knows that these monsters are powerful in large numbers, but since they are undead, they lack intelligence and will simply follow their target without strategy. When one monster tries to grab Nemia, Siki instructs the lion to run to the center of the floor and wait there. Nemia obeys, stopping in the middle as all the monsters swarm toward him. Siki then casts a petrification spell. Sphere doubts that it will work, but Siki is confident. Once all the monsters are gathered in one place, he draws his demon sword, activates Tenma, mutters "Saint," and attacks. The sword glows with radiant energy as he takes down the horde, defeating every undead monster with a single decisive strike. After the battle, Siki hugs Nemia, praising him for doing well. A level-up sign flashes before his eyes. Sphere is stunned that Siki managed to defeat all the monsters so quickly. Siki grins and asks if she didn't believe in him. Sphere shouts that she did, but still can't believe what she just witnessed. Siki laughs. He opens his status bar and sees that his level has jumped to 240, and he's collected numerous rare items. Curious, he asks Sphere how much the items will sell for. After calculating, Sphere replies that they're worth around 600 yen. Siki is surprised and jokes that maybe they don't need to move forward anymore. He then suggests that they should just go back home. Sphere quickly reminds him that they need to fight every monster on each level and defeat the boss on the top floor to clear the dungeon. Siki carefully observes the surroundings and points out to Sphere that the ceiling above them looks completely normal. Sphere looks up and tells him to just say what he's thinking. Siki explains that it's odd for a dungeon of this level to have such a normal ceiling without locks or gates. It doesn't feel right. Before he can continue, Sphere interrupts him, warning him not to rush or make reckless decisions. Siki stops her and begins using his magic, saying that Kotoha's life is far more important and that he now has everything he needs to save her. Afterward, he asks Sphere about the boss on the top floor. Sphere informs him that the Grim Reaper is the master of all monsters within this tower and that one must be at least level 550 to stand a chance against him. She adds that since Siki is currently level 240, fighting the Grim Reaper is extremely risky. However, knowing that Siki won't back down, she decides not to argue further. Instead, she encourages him, telling him to prepare himself and save his sister. Siki expresses his gratitude to Sphere and starts analyzing the situation, concluding that the Grim Reaper will most likely use ghost magic. After thinking for a moment, he selects a powerful spell and feels confident that this one will be strong enough to defeat the Grim Reaper. Siki Iori stands inside the A-rank dungeon, gazing up at the towering ceiling. He knows he must reach the top to face the Grim Reaper and find a way back to his sister. Determined, he decides to move forward and signals Sphere that they should begin. Blue magical energy spreads across the area. As Siki utters the magic spell, Tenma, he remains completely focused. With that spell, he propels himself upward through the tower. A powerful beam shoots straight through the structure, breaking the ceiling apart as Siki ascends, carving a direct path to the top floor. When he finally finishes his rise, Siki steps out from the shattered ceiling and lands on the highest level, the boss arena. Siki looks around confidently and realizes that the path he created could serve as a shortcut for future climbs. Sphere appears beside him, looking anxious. She warns Siki to be cautious and reminds him that this is the Grim Reaper's domain. The enemy could strike at any moment. Siki nods, already aware of the danger ahead. Then, the Grim Reaper materializes in the center of the arena, wearing a long, flowing purple gown. He sits upon a throne made of skulls, radiating a menacing aura. Siki Iori knows this will be one of the toughest battles of his life. He understands that it will require complete focus, and that even a single mistake could cost him everything. Siki carefully formulates his strategy. He decides that to defeat the Grim Reaper, he must immobilize him, restricting his movements and limiting his actions before delivering a decisive strike. The Grim Reaper raises his hand, and countless skeletons burst from the ground to attack Siki. Despite the chaos, Siki remains calm as the undead army rushes toward him. He knows he must act fast. He casts a spell called Perception Block. A green flame surrounds him, concealing his presence. Because of the spell, the undead soldiers pass right by him, completely unaware of his existence. They continue charging forward, attacking nothing. Siki watches quietly, satisfied that his spell is working as planned. He explains that the Grim Reaper uses ghost magic to command the undead indirectly. However, Siki's spell causes the undead to mistake him for one of their own, allowing him to move freely. But the Grim Reaper quickly realizes Siki's trick, and without hesitation, he grabs his sharp weapon and lunges forward. The movement is so fast it's nearly impossible to follow, but Siki reacts just in time, dodging the attack. He's faced countless monsters before, and he understands their fighting patterns. Every boss has a rhythm, a flow of energy, and a moment of weakness. Fortunately, Siki possesses one key advantage, Wisdom, a powerful ability that allows him to see and sense his opponent's magical energy. However, he only has the first form of this magic, and because the Grim Reaper's energy constantly shifts and changes form, tracking him becomes incredibly difficult. Siki knows that if he can focus and locate the true source of the Grim Reaper's magical core, he'll be able to land a strike at the Reaper. The Grim Reaper moves swiftly around Siki, vanishing and reappearing in different spots, making it hard to track him. Siki keeps his eyes locked, trying to analyze his movement and predict his next position. As soon as he identifies the Reaper's location, Siki launches an attack with all his might, but the damage is minimal. The battle intensifies as both fighters move and strike without rest. The difference in power is enormous. The Grim Reaper's strength and speed far surpass Siki's. Yet Siki refuses to give up. He formulates another plan. His only option now is to keep attacking relentlessly until the Grim Reaper finally falls. Even with his lower stats, Siki can still sense the Reaper's movement and energy, which gives him a slight advantage. But suddenly, something changes. Siki realizes that the biggest difference between who he was before and who he is now is that he has become more emotional, and this change happened because of Kodoha. The Grim Reaper notices this weakness and decides to exploit it. He unleashes his illusion magic, attempting to shatter Siki's focus. Siki's surroundings begin to distort, and he starts seeing visions of Kodoha, her face filled with pain and fear. The illusion grows stronger, more vivid. The Grim Reaper understands that Kodoha is Siki's greatest weakness. Taking advantage of the moment when Siki is completely lost in the illusion, he strikes. The Grim Reaper lunges forward and strikes Siki with his spear. Siki collapses to the ground, gasping in pain. Sphere screams his name, her voice echoing through the arena, but Siki can barely hear her. He realizes too late that he's been trapped inside the Grim Reaper's illusion. His body feels heavy, and his mind is clouded by confusion and pain. Memories start flooding back, his time with Kodoha, her laughter, her smile, and the small, precious moments they shared together. Meanwhile, Kodoha, lying weak in her hospital bed, begins to experience the same flashbacks, and tears fall from her eyes as she remembers the time she spent with her brother, the laughter, the piano lessons, and the way he always protected her. She doesn't want to die. She cries softly, unable to believe that her body has no more strength left to fight the disease. A pop-up suddenly appears on the screen, asking whether the forbidden restriction should be lifted or not. Sphere looks shocked when she sees it, as she didn't even know such a thing was possible. Siki stares at the screen, wondering if agreeing will truly lift his restriction. He hesitates for a moment, but then decides that if it means saving Kotoha, he will do anything. He doesn't know what will happen once the forbidden restriction is released, but he's ready to face the consequences. Another pop-up appears, informing him that the forbidden restriction has been lifted and that the forbidden Archmage has been set free. As soon as Siki accepts it, a brilliant blue light spreads throughout the entire dungeon. Siki grips his magical staff tightly, determination burning in his eyes. He wants to hurry back to Kotoha and save her, no matter what it takes. Fueled by desperation, he decides to destroy the entire dungeon. Channeling his immense power through the staff, he releases a surge of magic so strong that it breaks the dungeon. And also the Grim Reaper taken down as well, and Siki manages to escape. Moments later, he teleports out and returns to his city. Without wasting a second, Siki sprints toward the hospital, his heart pounding with fear and hope. Inside the hospital, the doctor shouts for Kotoha to hold on, telling her that her brother is on his way. Kotoha, weak and struggling, whispers Siki's name in desperation. Meanwhile, Siki races through the streets, determined to reach her as quickly as possible. On his way, he stops briefly to purchase the omnipotent elixir, clutching it tightly as he rushes toward the hospital. When he finally arrives, the doctor quickly informs him that Kotoha's condition has worsened and that there's nothing more they can do. The doctor gently tells him that it might be best to let her rest peacefully. Panic grips Siki as he screams Kotoha's name, refusing to accept what he's hearing. The doctor sadly explains that Kotoha is no longer conscious and urges Siki to stay by her side until the end. To everyone's shock, Siki suddenly grows calm. He looks at Kotoha in silence, then slowly steps closer and gently removes her oxygen mask. He lifts the potion to her lips and makes her drink it. The doctors shout in alarm, rushing to stop him, but before they can, Kotoha's eyes slowly flutter open. Everyone in the room freezes in disbelief. Nobody can comprehend what just happened. Kotoha softly calls out Siki's name. Tears fill Siki's eyes as he bends down and embraces her tightly, holding her close in his arms. The doctor informs Siki that his sister is completely recovered and that he can no longer find any problems with her health. He adds that her wounds have vanished and there is no need to fear any relapse. Siki listens quietly, relief spreading across his face. The doctor tells him that Kotoha will be able to leave the hospital tomorrow. Siki thanks him with a small bow. The doctor calls Kotoha's recovery a miracle. He explains that she had been suffering from a disease with no known cure, and recovering with a single dose of medicine is beyond medical understanding. The doctor then asks Siki about the liquid he gave her. Siki answers that it was the elixir, a kind of miracle drug he discovered inside a dungeon. He explains that he once heard a rumor that the elixir could cure anything. Though he never fully believed it, he still had confidence that it would work. He calls the dungeons mysterious places that contain things beyond human knowledge. The doctor nods, still finding it hard to believe what he just heard. The next day, Siki leaves the hospital with Kotoha. The air outside feels fresh, and Kotoha takes a deep breath, smiling as she walks. Siki watches her and smiles too, happy to see her standing strong again. Kotoha feels as though all the pain she endured now seems unreal. Siki looks around, planning to call a cab, but Kotoha stops him. She says that she feels fine and wants to walk home. Siki reminds her that their home is far and asks if she will be okay after just recovering. Kotoha smiles and reassures him, saying that if she gets tired, he can carry her on his back. Hearing that, Siki laughs softly and agrees. As they walk, Kotoha asks what he would like for dinner. Siki says they should celebrate her return home and can have sushi, barbecue, or anything she wants. Kotoha quietly asks if he can make his homemade curry instead. Siki tells her not to worry about saving money and insists she can eat whatever she likes. But Kotoha shakes her head and says that what she really wants most is his curry. She explains that eating it again means more to her than anything else in the world. Siki gives in with a smile, and they head toward the supermarket on their way home. Kotoha adds that she wants some pudding too, and Siki promises to buy her as many puddings as she wants. Kotoha laughs happily. When they reach home, both of them stop for a moment, noticing that the room light is already on. Siki immediately realizes that Sphere must be inside. He tells Kotoha not to go into that room. Inside, Sphere is sitting comfortably, eating mortal food with delight. She looks relaxed and pleased. She comments that the food of this world tastes amazing and that she might get addicted to it. Kodoha looks surprised and asks Siki if Sphere is a fairy. Sphere looks up, recognizing Kodoha, and says that she seems much better now. Kodoha tilts her head, wondering how Sphere knows her. Sphere tells her not to call her a fairy. She explains that she has been guiding Siki all this time and that she has saved him many times, even when he stood before death for Kodoha's sake. Kodoha listens quietly, then thanks Sphere sincerely. She calls her a polite girl, unlike her brother. Siki looks at both of them, noticing how quickly they are getting along. He sighs but feels happy that Kodoha is smiling again. He decides to make the curry, and soon the room is filled with its warm, comforting aroma. When the meal is ready, all three of them sit down to eat together. Kodoha finds the curry delicious and says she has missed his cooking. She feels alive after eating it, her eyes glowing with happiness. Sphere comments that it makes sense she feels that way, since she almost died. Siki doesn't like Sphere's remark, but when he sees Kodoha smiling, he decides to let it go. After dinner, they sit together watching TV. The news reports that a massive dungeon has suddenly appeared in the metropolitan area of Tokyo. The anchor explains that it's an A-rank dungeon and that several clans are being assigned to clear it. Kodoha comments that many dungeons have been appearing lately. Siki nods and replies that a dungeon of that size will take a long time to clear. While they're still watching, a pop-up suddenly appears in front of Siki. The message announces that an emergency quest has been issued for lifting the restriction. The quest's objective is to clear the Crystal Mines dungeon, and only 29 days remain to complete it. Siki studies the message carefully and wonders if this quest is similar to the one he faced before with Nemia. Sphere shakes her head and tells him that this one is different. She explains that quests with time limits should not even exist. Siki looks puzzled. Sphere reminds him that the forbidden restriction exists to make him stronger. Hearing this, Siki begins to wonder why. If it is meant to strengthen him, it's called compensation. He stares at the pop-up in silence, lost in thought about what it could mean. Kodoha looks at him with concern, but Siki forces a small smile to reassure her.